Got it. Okay. Great. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We're about a minute after the hour, and I think we're going to get started in an effort to be prompt. So we want to thank you for being here this evening. My name is Nikki Streegan. I am the housing manager here at Placer County, and I'm joined by Bethany Celio. She's our Civic Spark Fellow. I'll do a more formal intro of her when we get going here, but we are here from the Placer County staff, and glad you could be here with us tonight. This is the fourth installment in 4 sessions that we've hosted on housing, and it's called "What is Missing Middle Housing?" That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. The preceding sessions that we've had are one was on demystifying multifamily housing earlier in the month. And then just last week on Wednesday and Thursday, we held some sessions on ADU permitting and ADU financing. And if you did not catch those, you can catch them you can get the recording, and I'll put the link to that recording to those recordings in the chat here once I'm finished talking. And you'll be able to check them out if you didn't have a chance to join us live. Tonight, however, we are talking about what is missing middle housing. And this is an introductory presentation on missing middle housing. The purpose of tonight's session is really just to introduce the term to our community at a basic level, talk about what it means and how it's defined. We're going to look at a lot of building typologies, and you're going to see a lot of images of missing middle and get a sense for the feel and scale and that kind of thing. And then we just wanted to have kind of a broad conversation about the typologies and, where you see kind of merit in this type of housing. So really kind of high level introductory. We're not really getting into the nuances of, zoning for and, constraints to and all that stuff. We'll talk a little bit about that, but like I said, pretty high level discussion. So just a couple of housekeeping things also. The session is being recorded. We will post this on our webpage, just like we have posted the others on our webpage. Tonight, the flow of things, we're going to get not a brief presentation, but a presentation from Bethany, our very own staff member here. And we're going to do things a little differently. We're going to actually mix in some surveying and polling exercises at the very end that will precede the Q&A. So we obviously will have time to do question and answers, and similar to how we've done things in the last 3 sessions, you can raise your hand and come on live to get your question answered. Or you can type it into the Q&A using that button that's on your screen. So we'll take questions both ways. And if we don't get to a question for whatever reason we're not able to get to all the questions, we'll do our best to answer those and get those posted out to everyone who's joined us. Am I missing anything? I think that's okay for housekeeping. And we'll talk you through how to take our surveying, and when we get to Q&A, we'll talk you through all of that. Great. Well, I would like to take the time to introduce our main speaker this evening, and I'll give you a little bio here. So Bethany Celio has a degree in sustainable environmental design from UC Davis, with experience in both the private and public sectors. Before her role with Placer County, she'd worked for a development consultant. She's done architectural drafting and most recently completed UC Berkeley's In-City Summer Institute program for city planning and urban design. She gravitates towards small scale and infill development, missing middle housing, and zoning reform to create highly livable, interesting, and walkable places. So I'll pass it over to you. Thank you for putting this great presentation together, Bethany. We've been walking through it, and it is a really interesting one, and looking forward to the discussion that it compels here.
All right, thanks so much, Nikki.
Oh,
So,
actually,
this is still
it's
you.
me.
Yeah.
It's me. Still me. Still me. Okay. Well, I did want to just provide a little more context here before I pass it off to Bethany. And the context comes from our housing element. So that's one of the required elements in our general plan that provides some guidance on decision making relative to housing. So we do have a policy in our element that calls out encouraging missing middle housing. And that is shown here on the top of the screen. That's policy HEC4. The purpose, of course, is to provide middle class and workforce housing that's compatible with single family neighborhoods. Bethany will explain again why, how those components kind of play out in the definition. Then we have a couple of programs, and I won't read through these on the screen, but there are two programs. One is to look more kind of intently at the zoning code and look for ways to encourage missing middle. And the other is to promote missing middle among both the development community and the like and inform our community members, of course, about these types, because there's some merit in providing this type. So I just wanted to kind of set a baseline with regard to the policy and program backing that that the county has related to missing middle housing. And now I will pass it on to Bethany.
Awesome. Thanks, Nikki. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm excited to talk to you about missing middle housing. It's an important topic that I care deeply about. Really care about sustainable development and good urban design and how we just can create better places to live. So to start off, how do we define it? We define missing middle housing as house scale buildings with multiple units in walkable neighborhoods. And as you can see in this illustration, it depicts really nicely how residential development since the mid-20th century has focused more on the creation of detached single-family housing, as you can see on the left, or larger apartment buildings, as you can see on the right. And the harder to find housing options in between those two are considered the missing middle. Go to the next slide. So it's considered middle in two different ways. The first is in the urban and architectural form. It's a middle scale between single family homes and larger multifamily buildings. But it can also mean that it's targeting middle incomes. It can deliver affordability by design to middle income households and provide really good workforce housing. And so why is it important? We have some big issues that we need to solve as a society. The first, I think we all deal with or know some people who deal with the affordable housing crisis. So missing middle can help by providing more options in the housing market. Smaller units are often more affordable by design, and shared land costs often make it less expensive to purchase a home than a single family house, because it kind of diffuses that cost over the same amount of land. And it can enable family members to live near each other. So, an aging kid or a parent that you want to live close to while having your own space. It's really important. The second issue that I want to touch on is that in a lot of our country, recent development patterns have made it hard to live car-free. So we don't have many walkable places and options to live car-free. So missing middle can help provide housing in and even help to generate more walkable neighborhoods. And it also reduces transportation costs. And the third issue that I want to talk about is just kind of the overarching theme of unsustainable or inefficient growth patterns. So focusing more on infill development and compact development can really help create more smarter land use. And it also preserves open spaces like our cherished, forests, ag lands, wildlife habitat. We can have both. We can have really thriving places for people to live, and we can protect our open spaces. The next slide. And so kind of want to talk about walkable and mixed-use neighborhoods and the increasing demand for them. Walkability is key to the benefits provided by missing middle housing. With stores, services, and eateries within walking distance of where people live, local businesses can thrive, and car ownership by residents can be optional, which reduces the cost for all involved. So missing middle housing types fit within and help to generate these walkable neighborhoods, and help to create community amenities that can become an extension of people's homes. And so you can see these stats are pretty impressive. 46% of baby boomers and 56% of millennials say that they want to live in more walkable mixed-use neighborhoods. And so as a smaller scale home type, missing middle housing is one of the many housing options needed by communities and people of all ages. Really doesn't matter what age you are. We all kind of want similar things. These types of homes are especially useful for, say, young adults entering the housing market, as well as single adults who maybe don't need as much space, empty nesters and retirees who don't need all that space or the upkeep responsibilities of a single family home. Next, we'll see, we'll touch on some points about, why is it missing? Why don't we see much of this anymore? And it's considered missing because relatively little has been built since the 1940s. Middle housing was common in neighborhoods in most communities prior to World War II. And some reasons why we haven't seen much built in the last few decades is that the first one is federal lending policies changed to prioritize single family home ownership. There was a shift to car-centric development patterns, and zoning as well made many missing middle housing types illegal to build. Next, we'll see, this is a little pie chart that I put together based on Placer County's land use categories by acre. And so the little pie chart on the left is all county land uses. We have the biggest portion of the pie is ag and timberlands. Of course, we're a very rural county in that way. Second is open space, forest, water, and recreation. And then everything else is that little white slice of the pie. And if you look at the whole thing, you can see that rural residential and low density residential, as well as specific plans, make up the bulk of our residential zoned land. And so most of our land is zoned for single family housing. Just a tiny portion is zoned for medium or high density residential. As you can see in the pink and the light coral colors, and orange. So we'll talk a little bit more about density caps in some of the later slides, but this is just kind of hitting home the point that, why doesn't it exist? Well, we've kind of, baked it into our zoning code where it's hard to build, so. Okay, so just to talk about some characteristics, there are 6 main characteristics. The first one is that they are compatible with single family homes. Second is that they provide smaller but well-designed units. They're located in a walkable context. They provide fewer off-street parking spaces, getting back to that prioritization of places for people over cars. They support a stronger sense of community, and they're simple to construct and more affordable by design. Next one, we'll see how this is kind of a cool map that shows, the distance to walkable city centers or amenities such as schools, parks, shopping, food, transit stops. So when we're thinking about where we should direct growth and development, we should be thinking about how to create more mixed-use neighborhoods and walkable neighborhoods. And then the next one, we'll see how, they're very compatible with single-family home neighborhoods. As you can see, the duplex on the left really fits in seamlessly. You can almost not tell that it's 2 units there. So I thought that was a pretty interesting slide. And the next one we'll see, sometimes people say, well, what's the difference between missing middle and an apartment complex? One of the main differences is that remember we talked about house scale, right? So it's on the left, you can see this is an apartment complex, takes up maybe a whole block. And on the right, you can see there's 5 units in this building. It looks like maybe the size of a single family house, but it's actually achieving a similar result in terms of density as the apartment complex. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go into each of the different typologies. So this is a nice diagram from Opticos showing the main different types, the palette. So as we go through the following images, I want you to take note of certain features in the pictures, such as what are some characteristics that might help the home blend in with the surrounding neighborhood? What are the number of floors and entry points, and where are those entry points? What's the location and the amount of parking? How much parking is provided? Are there any common or shared spaces? What is the setback? What's the difference between, or what's the distance between the sidewalk and where the house starts? What are the lot sizes and the frontage type? So frontage is like how the building meets the street. So features such as porch, stoop, 0-step entry, keep in mind, just notice all the different types that are available. So if we go to the next slide. We're starting off with the duplex. So on the right-hand side in the yellow bar, you'll see some more technical information such as typical lot sizes and density. And if you're not a planner or are not interested in that, don't worry about it. But it's there just in case you are when I kind of geek out on that stuff. But yeah, mostly just focus on the picture and the urban form. So the side-by-side duplex is a small 1 to 2 story detached structure that consists of 2 dwelling units arranged side by side, each with an entry from the street. And this type has the appearance of a small to medium single unit house and may include a rear yard. As you can see on the left, looks like there's a little, maybe a gravel driveway leading to some sort of accessory structure in the back. And in the next slide, we'll see a nice, this is called an axonometric diagram on the right. And I wanted to include this to kind of show how parking can be placed, where parking can be placed and how the unit can be accessed. So this one is called alley loaded. And so it's not shown in the picture, but you can kind of see where in the back, the parking is kind of tucked in off of an alleyway. And then in the next slide, we'll see front loaded diagram. So this one shows you would access the parking from the street in front of the house, and you would go along a skinny driveway to the back, to the rear of the lot. And it would have either covered or uncovered parking there. And so it's also interesting just to note that all of that kind of goes into planning, how big does the lot have to be? And with an alley loaded, you can actually get a smaller lot and thus, more units in the same amount of land because of that shared parking or shared access way. Okay. So these are examples from my town, Nevada City. There's a lot of older historic homes there and a lot of sneaky missing middle housing that you might not notice, but if you look on Google Maps, you'll see, oh, there's 2 units in that building, right? So it's pretty cool. And I just love this home. This picture on the right, I took just a few weeks ago. It's a beautiful, beautiful home. And you can never tell that it's 2 units. So it's pretty cool. Another thing to note on these pictures is that a lot of the older historic neighborhoods don't have off-street parking. And that's the kind of house that I live in. I live in an ADU, which is an accessory dwelling unit in one of the old Victorians, and we don't have a garage or a driveway. We just park on the street, and it works for us. It might not work for everyone, but it's nice to have places that provide those kinds of options. Okay, so the next one is a stacked duplex. So basically the same thing, except the units are stacked on top of each other. And let's go to the next one. This is a nice example from Sacramento. This is on H Street. This is called the Winters House. It's a very old historic building. I love this example of the beautiful Victorians. A lot of thought went into that house, and it's just a beautiful example, missing middle. And next we'll see the triplex and the fourplex. So this housing type is a detached, usually 2 to 3 story structure with 3 to 4 dwelling units with shared or individual entries from the street. And this type has the appearance of a medium-sized single unit house and may include a rear yard. Next, we'll see an example also from Nevada City. This house is, I walk past it all the time. It's right next to a school and a lot of other things. It's right in a, residential neighborhood surrounded by single family homes. And, it's kind of hard to tell that it's multiple units, but there's actually 4 there, one for kind of on each corner. So I think it's a great example. And the next one, here we have the small multiplex. And these could also be called mansion apartments. You might have heard that term. So the small multiplex is anywhere between 6 to 10 units about, and it's a detached 2 to 2.5 story structure that consists of a few dwelling units arranged side by side and or stacked, typically with a shared entry from the street. And this type has the appearance of a medium to large single unit house. And the next slide, we'll see another example from Sacramento. This one, if I counted right, I looked on Google Maps and I counted the meters and I counted 9. So I think this one has 9 units. And then we have the large multiplex, which is a similar idea, but just a little bit bigger. So we have 7 to 18 units. And this may have been, an older home that was a mansion at one point. And as needs change, it can be kind of divvied up into multiple units. It's a great way to preserve the existing character and fabric of a neighborhood while providing more housing options. Okay, and here we have the cottage court. And oops, this could also be called the bungalow court. It's typically 5 to 10 units. And it's defined as a group of small 1 to 1.5 story detached structures arranged around a shared court that's visible from the street. The shared court is an important community enhancing element, and unit entrances should be accessed from the shared court. Oftentimes, the rearmost building can go up to even 2 stories. And the next one, we have a courtyard building. So same idea where the homes are clustered around a shared space. But this one is more of a medium to large size, so it can go up to 3.5 stories. Detached structure consisting of multiple side-by-side or stacked dwelling units oriented around the shared courtyard. And so that courtyard replaces the function of a rear yard and is more open to the street in low intensity neighborhoods, while it's less open to the street in more urban settings. And each unit is accessed from the courtyard and they have shared stairs that can each provide access to up to 3 units. And the next one we have is a townhouse. And this is an image of a smaller townhouse. There are larger ones, but we, in the interest of time, we were cutting down slides. So this one we thought was could fit right in Placer County, and I thought it was a great example. So a townhouse is defined as a small to medium-sized attached structure that consists of 2 to around 16 multi-story dwelling units placed side by side. And so they share a wall. Entries are on the narrow side of the unit and typically face a street or a courtyard. And the street facades have entrances, and for good urban design, we want to avoid having garages on the front. And this next one is live work. Live work is interesting. So it's defined as a small to medium-sized attached or detached structure consisting of one dwelling unit above or behind a fire-separated flexible ground floor space that can accommodate a range of non-residential uses. The flex space and residential unit typically have separate street entrances, and the flex space typically has taller ceiling heights and a shop frontage. So that lower unit can be, it's nice because it's flexible, can be used either as a shop or a residence, depending on what people need. This next one is a pocket neighborhood. And so I'm going to be talking about pocket neighborhoods and co-housing communities in the sense that they provide more, they can take many different urban forms. But the commonality is that they provide more shared amenities. And so pocket neighborhoods are defined as clustered groups of neighboring houses or apartments gathered around some sort of shared open space. And so this is a really nice example from Healdsburg. It was just built recently. I just met the developer, actually, Jim. He's really great. And he said these homes, they're very popular. And so there's definitely a demand for this kind of housing. And this next one is a beautiful co-housing community. This one is also in Nevada City. And so co-housing communities can take many forms. In Nevada City's case, it's attached townhomes oriented along pedestrian walkways. But essentially, co-housing is defined as an intentional and collaborative neighborhood that combines private homes with shared indoor and outdoor spaces that are designed to support an active and really interdependent community life. It's not a financial or legal model, but rather it's more of a descriptive term that emphasizes the active participation of residents and everything from the design of the neighborhood up to governance and maintenance and all of that. So it really provides, if you're looking for a more, community-oriented way of living, co-housing is a great option. And again, it can take many different forms. So it could be, detached homes, or it could be attached townhomes, or it could even be in a more urban environment, in a high-rise building or mid-rise apartments. It really depends on the context. Okay, so after looking at all those great examples, what are some typical barriers? It's not fun to talk about, but we got to do it if we're gonna build more of these options. So the first one is the zoning barriers. So such as density and minimum lot sizes. The missing middle housing exceeds most communities' maximum density limits. As you could see in our slides, some of those densities go up pretty high. And so it's really good to focus on the urban form rather than just the density number itself, and to kind of take away those restrictions. Building size and scale as well, setback requirements and parking requirements, those can all make it more difficult to build these types of housing. They can be harder to finance, just with, they haven't been financed for many years. They haven't been prioritized in that way. And so it might take a while for the systems to catch up and to readjust. And there's also community concerns about, terms such as density or multifamily or upzoning. But hopefully we could kind of show that in those pictures that we just showed, Doesn't have to be scary. It can be a great amenity and boon to the communities that they are placed in. And so, what's Placer County doing? What's some progress that we've been making? So last summer, there were the housing related code amendments. And it's a big document, but I just want to focus on two of the main aspects in those code amendments. So the first one is preserving multifamily zones. So now you can still build single family dwellings in the multifamily zone, but only as part of a cluster lot development. So it's really trying to protect those, remember the skinny slice of the pie. We're trying to protect those for multifamily. And in the next one, we'll see our multifamily and mixed use design manual. And so now we allow multifamily development in commercial and office and professional zones. So that opens up a big chunk of a big amount of land to do more mixed use neighborhoods, which is pretty exciting. And lastly, just some resources. So I would recommend checking out the AARP booklet. It's really great. It's an easy read. It's really quick, and it's free. So if you just type it in, Missing Middle Housing, AARP, Discovering and Developing, that'll come up, and you can just put in your address and they'll send it to you. If you want to get more into it, there's a whole book on the topic. It's also very good. I read the whole thing. And a website, which has a lot of the pictures that I used are from that website, and they have more examples as well. Civic Well, the organization that I work for, actually also did a great webinar and where they go more into detail, so you can watch the recording from them. And I also included Pocket Neighborhoods, the book, because it just has a lot of great examples, beautiful pictures of co-housing and different pocket neighborhood type developments. For the more planners or development oriented people out there, you can get more into detail from resources from ABAG and SACOG and UC Berkeley Turner Center. And we can share these links as well. So I think that wrapped it up for my presentation. And now we'll start getting into the interactive portion.
That sounds great. I'm going to stop screen sharing here, Bethany, and we'll have you call up our surveying tool.
Okay.
And
So now I need to share my screen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, while you're doing that, I can
here.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see that?
That looks good. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Nikki, do you want to give us a little introduction and
yes,
instructions?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So as we had mentioned earlier, for this portion of our kind of conversation and discussion, we're going to kick it off with sort of a warm-up exercise. And we're going to use a platform called Mentimeter in order to ask you some survey questions live and get your responses live. So there are two ways to participate. And you can get out your phone and use the QR code on the right hand, or your iPad, whatever device you have, and you can use the QR code on the right hand side. And if it's through the camera function or whatever, if you're familiar with using QR codes, then point your camera, phone, whatever at that, and then tap on the screen to get you over to our survey using the QR code. If you don't want to do that, you can open up a new browser on the computer, in your browser, whatever browser you're using, open up a new window and go to menti.com, www.menti.com. And then you're going to be asked to enter a code. And this will allow you to participate live in this survey that we're going to run this polling that we're going to run. So I'll give you a moment to do that. For those who are opening up a new window and navigating to menti.com, I'm seeing thumbs up. All right, so people are making their way there. I'll give you a moment here to navigate to menti.com if you're going to open up a new window, and then type in, I'm going to read out the code. I'll do that a couple times. The code is 9487606. And again, if you're opening that up, if you're using the QR code, you do not need to punch in a number. You don't need to punch in any of those numbers. It'll just navigate you straight there. And I see that now there are like 9 of our 14 attendees or so on. So great. We have like a good rate here, like a 75-ish% rate.
And if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or ask to unmute.
Right. If you are having any technical difficulties, you can throw it in the chat and I'll try to help you out. But I think we'll kind of start administering the survey in another 20 seconds or so. Okay, we're up to 11 now. Okay. This is great.
We have two people in our attendees that.
If you don't get there, that's okay too. You're gonna see the results live on your screen. But if you can participate, we would love for everybody to participate. Some of you might be like listening and driving, but hopefully not. Anyway, so again, you can use the QR code on the right hand side of the screen or navigate to menti.com and enter 9483606.
Okay, you think that's all we'll get?
I think we'll roll with it from here. We're testing out some new technology here.
Here we go. Okay, so the first question we have for you guys is, what are you looking for when it comes to your neighborhood, housing, and lifestyle? So very broad brush, kind of big picture thinking. What do you look for in the place where you live? Awesome. So we got safety, amenities, affordable price, awesome neighbors, walkable, multi-story units, strong community, close to amenities, walkable, safety, and quiet are up there. Nature, trees, near services, lots of space for toys.
I like that one. Lots of space for toys.
Yeah.
Where to stuff to put what kind of toys, right? Like
right.
Whose toys?
Public spaces, bikeable, portable, gardens, nature. I'm loving this, guys. That's awesome. I can't tell which one just got added. Privacy.
I was just gonna say, for those who are kind of jumping in, there's always an opportunity to use the QR code to go to menti.com, because the lower right hand of Bethany's screen is showing how to navigate there if you're not quite there yet.
Very cool, you guys. Oh, I love this. Attractive gardens. Okay, so I think we'll go to the next one. That was awesome. Have you ever lived in a missing middle housing type? Yes, no, or are you unsure? Yes, lots of yeses. I know. Very cool. Okay, so mix and no unsure. So I think I explained it well enough where you all know if you didn't know before. Very cool. Okay. Good to know. So majority has lived in a missing middle. Okay, so this next one. Is there a type of missing middle housing that appeals to you or someone you know? And this one you can select all that apply. Give this one some time. Wow, way cool. Look at these results. Love it. Okay, so we have. Okay, so 7 for duplex, 2 for tri and fourplex, 10 for cottage courts. Looks like cottage courts won. 8 for pocket neighborhoods or co-housing. Very cool. 1 for multiplex. Love it. Oh, just bumped up. 5 for courtyard, 5 for townhouse, and 7 for live work. Oh, how cool. Wow. These are great. Okay, did everyone get their answers in? Right, I see that, Linda. Yeah, I think that different housing types appeal to people at different times in their lives. Okay, when you're just out of college is not necessarily what you choose when you're 40, totally. Yeah. Yeah, so getting back to that, like providing options for whatever stage you are at in life. Cool. Okay. Awesome. Well, that was really cool. So the last one is, what's something new that you learned today? Was there anything that surprised or intrigued you? And your answers will kind of pop up like little post-it notes. So. Breakdown of Placer County's land use by type. Yeah, yeah. That was a fun graphic to make too. There's a need, but some communities reject the idea. Ooh, calling out Loomis. Ooh. Can tiny houses on wheels be used in cottage neighborhoods? Yes. That less than 1% of Placer County is used for urban housing. That explains the scarcity and thus higher prices. Wonder if it's by design. Missing middle is more about housing type and size and affordability. Yeah. Yeah. I know. When I heard about this app, I was like, wow, I gotta use that. Ellen, there are likely several classes. Middle in 2 ways, typology and income means. Lack of parking is an issue because people need to drive to work, gardeners, etc. It's definitely a factor. One more. Got 10 answers. So I think that's maybe it. Okay.
Awesome.
Good.
Yeah, that's great. It's our first time using the Menti platform also, and Bethany and I had both kind of heard. We had both. I've seen it used in some applications. She had heard about it from like maybe a Civic Well talk or something that maybe you had done, and we're like, let's test it out. So we're really glad that this is a great way to kind of get some feedback. So I want to kind of turn us to the Q&A portion of our session. It's 6:45 right now, so we're more than happy to field some questions. You can continue to type some comments in the chat, or you can use the Q&A function, and we can pull you off of I'm sorry, you can use the Q&A function and put your question in the Q&A tool, or you can raise your hand and we will pull you off, make you live, and we can take your question live. So we will, why don't we, should we start with we'll start with Q&A. So we'll take, you want me to take, I'll read this one live, and we can figure out who fields these two, Bethany. Sure. But the first question that I'm seeing is, please clarify what encourage and promote means from the county perspective. and I can take a first crack at that, and you can kind of fill in some blanks. The two programs that were in our housing element, one of them includes, identifying removal of some barriers for missing middle. And I think Bethany had identified a few of them through the housing related code amendments. There are probably more to go. And it's funny, we were just talking to some planning staff. We were talking to some planning staff this morning about, has a comprehensive audit, been done on the zoning code and, looking at all the county's policies on land use. And the answer to that in the near term is no, but is it identified in the program? Yes. And so that is, a piece, I think, of the program that we've identified for ourselves to encourage and promote these over the next housing cycle. I think as far as the like working with the development community, that was the second program. I think we're still trying to kind of put and advocacy community, we're still trying to figure that out. So, we're kind of open to what that might mean for you, like if you have some ideas that might support encouragement and promotion, we are definitely happy to take some of those, and you're welcome to throw those in the chat or talk with us some more about that.
Cool. Thanks for the question, Carol.
So second question, you want me to read that one off?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, second question here. Where do you see missing middle housing in Placer County, since it is too late to incorporate this concept in specific plans? And I can kick that one off, and you feel free to add. Bethany probably has an opinion on this. So we actually talked about this because we had a where does this go in the county is kind of a really big loaded question. And at the onset of talking, designing this webinar, we said, we don't know that we want to go there for the purposes of this webinar, but we do know that missing middle does well in existing commercial corridors, existing neighborhoods, in transition areas between neighborhoods and commercial areas, and then also transition areas between neighborhoods and mixed use corridors. And, it's funny, I would kind of like turn that question back on our audience almost, like, where do you see it? I mean, I know that a lot of the types that we've shown have, they're from very historic areas, although we do, we have those corridors in some places in Placer County, but like, I think I would want to, and this really is a community conversation, like, where do you see this sort of belonging? So existing specific plans, they may not have product types like this, right? That might not be kind of context appropriate, but, future specific plans could, right? That doesn't kind of preclude that opportunity in future specific plans. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Bethany.
No, I think that's a good answer. I think I would add, this presentation was very aspirational, and so even just getting the conversation started with staff, with the community about what do we want to see going forward, and I think getting people involved, feel free to get involved in your community meetings and speak up about if what you want your community to look like, and I think that can make a big impact as well.
Yeah,
it is unfortunate. I think that some of the a lot of the the last half century has been a certain type of development, and so we're trying to shift away from that, and that's a big ship to steer. So we're just getting it going.
Yeah, and I'll make a plug here for the county's general plan update. So the planning division just went to the Board of Supervisors with a scope of work for the general plan update. The general plan, of course, is the county's vision for future development, including setting land use changes and land use policy. And so that scope of work just went to the board yesterday. If you want to hear that, it should be up on the web, and recorded and live, but rather recorded, and you can listen to it. But yeah, this question about where does it go? Where do things go as far as land uses and different housing types? That's definitely going to come up as part of the general plan process. That is a multi-year process, but that's something I'll make a plug to encourage those of you who are interested to get involved in that process. Okay, we have another question here. Of the housing options identified, which ones are developers most interested in building and why? And which ones are they least interested in building and why? That's a great question. And I don't know entirely the answer to that. I do know, we've been talking, we have talked to Dan Heldridge. He's from Housing Trust Placer. He's the executive director there. And we were talking about kind of smaller scale development. And one of the things that he had pointed out to us is like cracking the nut of how to finance development at this scale versus a bigger scale, is a challenge. And Bethany had kind of identified that in her list of constraints and challenges. I think, do we have any if we have any developers on, I would love to hear, raise your hand. It would be cool to hear from you. As far as like what pencils out related to the product types you see here. And I think probably, lending themselves more to those cottage style, pocket style townhome, right? That's what I would guess, but, I don't know. And that's something we can kind of dig into by talking with our development community. That's a great question. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No hands raised from develop. I don't know that we have any on the line here.
Another answer to that could be not Placer specific, but the Berkeley Turner Center did a roundtable discussion with developers, and so they talked about some of the constraints and what types they would want to build and what pencils out and all of it. So if you're interested in getting more into the details, there's no.
Okay. That's not, and you have the Turner Center's link, that the Turner Center Unlocking the Potential of Missing Middle Housing. Is that where they can find? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's where they can find that resource. Okay. Next question here. Do you have an opinion about the difficulties in building missing middle housing in unincorporated Placer County versus in cities? I mean, I think this gets into, I'll start, and Bethany, you can kind of fill in here. Bethany had identified zoning constraints, which, is part of the difficulty in the unincorporated county. I don't know, I'm also thinking through like a lot of the project examples that Bethany cited are from like City of Sacramento, Nevada City. We didn't have a lot from the incorporated cities in Placer County. And it would be an interesting question to see, where they are at as far as, identifying where these product types could be built, probably in their more established commercial areas, in their existing neighborhoods, maybe their historic neighborhoods. No, I mean, this is a great question. And I don't know that I have a great answer. And Bethany, I don't know if you have any thoughts or.
I think we're all kind of looking at our zoning codes and thinking, how can we make it easier? And so the challenges are going to be different for each jurisdiction. Yeah. And I want to jump to the chat and answer Daniel's. Has a good question. What is a sort of giveaway to spot missing middle housing when walking an area? Would it always include multiple unique addresses? That's a great question, Daniel. So Opticos has some tips on how to find it. You can go to, like, if you go to Google Maps and kind of go to an older, like, historic commercial core, usually missing middle is close to that and nearby those commercial corridors. And they, if you can zoom in, you can see that there are multiple addresses. And if you're walking the neighborhood, you can look for mailboxes as well. Sometimes you'll see like 3 mailboxes next to each other. Also utility meters. So if you look on the side of the house, or usually tucked in somewhere, there are a certain amount of meters that you can count. And sometimes that's a good giveaway. But yeah, great question.
Okay, there's one more in the chat.
Oh yeah,
It's
from Linda. Decoupling density from parking and traffic is key to the narrative and support. This has been an issue with the Tahoe Basin Plan update. Totally. Yeah, thank you for that, Linda. Yeah.
Good comment.
So back to the question and answer.
Yeah. I'll read this one off. Is it difficult to find developers who are interested in building missing middle? Who would manage these middle housing units? How can the county encourage building missing middles? This is 3-part. I don't know if you want to take try it from some of the knowledge you gained last week, Bethany, if you have thoughts on the first one.
Is it difficult to find developers who are interested in building it? That's a good question. Do you like for Placer in particular? I'm not totally sure. I think it will become easier if they know that it's legal to build, first of all. So like stripping away some of those barriers, making it legal and easy, and even by right in some instances, using our objective design standards, I think will make it easier to find developers who are interested. Because a developer isn't going to go in and, unless they really care about it and they want to, change the system, they're not going to go in and try to like overhaul a zoning code. So the next one, who would manage these middle housing units? So they could either be like fee simple, where you own your house outright and you manage it yourself, or it could also be just rented. So say like a 4-plex, there's it could be owner occupied, one person lives in one of the units and rents out the other 3. I know in co-housing communities, they are collectively maintained and managed. So it all depends on the type. Yeah, different ownership structures and that kind of thing. We're gonna take, it's almost 7 o'clock, believe it or not, and we have a lot of questions in here, and I think we will not we won't get to all of these, but I think we'll take one more here, and then we'll make sure we get to the rest of them in a answer them, and then get some of the answers posted on the website. But this question here, what kind of missing middle housing would provide a garden for those who want to grow vegetables? You want to take that one? That's a great question, Muriel. I think a lot of the types can provide space for gardens. Definitely in co-housing communities, because residents are involved in the design, they can set that as a priority from the beginning before it's even built. They can say, hey, we want to really, we are really interested in gardening and want to live more, farm to fork kind of lifestyle, and we want to get our hands dirty in the soil, and so we're going to dedicate a certain amount of our land to gardens. In say cluster housing or a cottage type, cottage court, that central area could be a garden. Doesn't have to just be aesthetic or like landscaping that you can't touch. It could be whatever the residents want. And then for say like a duplex or triplex, you can have a backyard and you can do whatever you'd want in that backyard. So
yeah.
Great.
Okay, I see, we actually have one hand raised, so maybe we'll make this our last, the last one we take, the last question we take. I'm kind of quickly going through Q&A. We will definitely make sure a copy of the slide deck is available on our website. I will put that in the chat, a link to that in the chat. In fact, I think all of our slide decks and video recordings should be available there, but I'll drop that in the chat. And then, Bethany, if you want to pull the lone person with the hand raised off of,
Oh, yeah. Lisa.
and we can have Lisa ask her comment live, or ask her question live, or make her comment live.
Okay, Lisa, if you can unmute, we can take your question.
If we can get her to unmute, are you able to unmute, Lisa? Oh, uh-oh. Error putting in his hand. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. So I'll drop, I'm dropping the link to the speaker series in the chat. So there it is. You can see where all the recordings are. You can, we'll make sure the slide decks are up there from all of our sessions. And we can kind of recap some of the questions that we didn't get to, Bethany, and we'll get those posted and out to the community also. Yeah. So I'll just say a big thank you to Bethany Celio for preparing this presentation. I know it was an awesome lift for her. It's a passion of hers, and we're really happy to, have her speak this evening. And we're looking forward to future conversations, and glad that everyone was able to participate tonight. And also thank you if you came to our previous sessions. We're looking forward to, to more of these series as the year goes on, or years go on, as we're trying to kind of tackle some housing issues together as a community and together with you at Placer County. So thanks very much for joining us this evening, and thank you again, Bethany. And we will talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.